So I want to be real with you for a second. The reason why business astrology isn't working for you is because you're using your midheaven as your career, and that's where things are getting messed up, to be honest. But it's okay because I'm here to steer you in the right direction. If you're new here, my name is Blue. I'm a business astrologer here to help you use astrology so you can start growing scale your online business. And this is probably the biggest mistake that I see people making when it comes to applying business astrology into their lives. They learn about the midheaven, which is my personal favorite placement. It is, I think, a really fantastic placement, but you have to know how to use it. And the mistake that I see people making, especially business owners, when it comes to incorporating this into their business strategy is that they see their midheaven as the only placement that they need to be paying attention to and their career in their business. And that is it's the biggest mistake. Because in order to use business astrology effectively, you have to understand the roles that the placements play with each other. And most importantly, how to use them correctly. And I see where this misconception comes up. The midheaven is the most visible placement in the birth chart. It's the highest placement, right? It's going to be the most visible. And most people, when they see it, they ascribe it to their career. But your midheaven is so much more than your career. The core problem, I think, is that we have distilled career, work, vocation, all of these things to mean one thing. And if we go back to traditional astrology, which is the astrology that I focus on and I practice, it really gives a more holistic view of how we can consider work in the birth chart in a way that is actually honoring the full entirety of the human experience, right? So many of us want to do the things that we love and we want to have a career that supports us in doing that. However, that's going to look so differently for so many different people. Traditional astrology also points us to the fact that not everybody is meant to be doing the same thing. Not everybody is meant to be doing what they love as a career. Some people are truly meant to astrologically be doing a job where they clock in and out, and that allows them to have the time and the space and the resources to explore their passions outside of work. And that is going to bring the most fulfillment to them. The problem really comes in when we start ascribing purpose and career and your vocation and the midheaven as all the same thing when it's really not. And so we really need to backtrack, right? And understand that there are different meanings to different placements within the chart. And it's the way that all these things come together that allows you to build the best career for you based on your birth chart. If we think about it in a different way, your career, your vocation, and the work that you do are all separate things astrologically. I actually have a whole video where I break down the differences of them and the different placements of what they represent in the birth chart if you want to check that out. But the thing with the midheaven specifically is that it is not your career. It's your legacy energy. Okay. So think about it like this. If your legacy, right? If we think about terminology and specifically what your legacy is, it is the culmination of work that is done over time. And so in order to create a legacy, you first have to define what is the work that you're going to be committing to doing, right? Like that's the very first step. And your work specifically, as we're defining it, like the literal thing that you are doing, the actions that you are quite literally doing that are defining your profession, your career over time, and leading towards your legacy. These are all different things. So astrologically, we're going to be looking at work first, defining what that actually is. What is the thing that you want to be doing as your chosen labor? Then that's going to lead to, okay, what is the profession? What is the title and the role that you can do that encapsulates that work that you want to be doing. Within that profession, the work that is done over time, and maybe it's multiple professions too, that'll allow you to undergo this work over time. This is going to allow you to build a career. Okay, so we're talking years here. This is not something that is done quickly. It is going to be done over time, over the span of months, of years, of defining what your career is. And that is based on your chosen profession and then the work that you are choosing to do within that profession or professions, because it's also very realistic to have like multiple things that you're doing as well, or taking on different occupations, different roles, varying the type of work and how it's defined within your career. And then over that unveiling over time, that is then leading to your legacy energy. So that's where the midheaven comes in at. When I work with clients and we talk about business astrology, the midheaven is the starting point, because when it comes to building a business, you get to begin with the end in mind. You get to start from where is it that you want to be. The midheaven gives you a shortcut from all this. So instead of you having to start from square one of figuring out what is the work that you want to be doing, that you're going to enjoy the most, and starting from there and then having to wait the decades that it does require for you to build your career over time. When it comes to business astrology, we start with the midheaven because your birth chart already points to the legacy energy that comes most naturally to you. So the midheaven is already going to define what that legacy energy looks like. But here's the thing, just because your midheaven falls in a particular sign, in a particular house, that doesn't mean that you are then limited to careers and professions and work that are solely defined within that midheaven. So let me take mine, for example, right? I have a 10th house Taurus midheaven. And with that, if we look at it from the perspective of your midheaven is your career, that would limit me to doing things that are like very Taurus coded. So what do I often see with pop astrology? Being a florist, being a makeup artist, working with my hands very like tangibly. So working with the earth, like if we want to get very literal about that, or even working in finance. All these things that are very much not in my personal wheelhouse, not things that I would be building my career off of, and that I have not. Instead of looking at my midheaven sign in the midheaven house to define the limitations and the boxes that I'm going to put myself in, instead, let me look at the archetype. What does Taurus rule over, and how can that be expanded in ways that actually align to my lived experience, my expertise, and the things that I know that for myself outside of astrology that I already do well. Again, taking that same example, Taurus rules over this natural way of like beautifying something. So it's not just about artistically making something beautiful. It's also about how can I help to make things easier for people. So aligning that to being a business astrologer, I'm supporting clients in a particular niche by helping them to use astrology for their business, but I'm doing it in a way that is going to allow them to build their business in a more simplistic way, in a more aligned way, in a way that is encompassing their full lived experience, where they can have a business and a life that actually aligns to them and doesn't just feel like a copy paste of like, well, here's what everybody else is doing, you should be doing that too. That is not gonna fly. That's also really reflective, I think, of like where we are in this current moment of work and career and business. There's so much infrastructure that is just not working. And at the core of it, all these different paths of what's not working come back to the fact that we are humans that have full lived experiences, and we're not taking that into consideration when it comes to building a career and a business that actually truly aligns with us. So instead, I'm much more interested both as a person in the world, as a person with a job outside of astrology, who's interested in the trends and the ways of which that business and work are evolving and how astrology can best support that. I'm much more interested in supporting my clients through this holistic perspective rather than forcing them in a box and just saying, well, here's a sign that your midheaven's in, here's a house it's in, here are the only things that you are ever allowed to do. Good luck. That's just not going to work. Your midheaven is not the only thing that defines what your career is. Just like career and business in general are not just boiled down to just one placement. Just like relationships and love are not just boiled down to just one placement in the birth chart. Even like if we get even more specific to like purpose, right? Which is also another thing that has been distilled down to being defined through career and your purpose, two distinct things. One placement cannot hold the entirety of it. However, your midheaven is, and it can be, especially if you are a business owner and you want to do this the correct way, in a way that is truly aligning to how you want to build business, it can be a really good starting point. But it's not going to be the beginning and the end of the journey completely. If you're seeing your midheaven as the only placement that is defining your career, I'm sorry to say you're doing it wrong. But as a business astrologer, I'm here to give you the tools and help you get back on the right path so that you can see the beauty not just of the Midheaven placement, but all of the placements that are relevant to building your career and business over time so that you can create a business that is truly aligned with who you are and what you want to do and what helps you feel the most fulfilled. And I do that by creating space for all the other placements that are just as important as the Midheaven in defining and most importantly executing on building and refining what your business can actually look like astrologically. So if you are also interested in building a business and a life that is truly aligned to how you want to be living it, and you want to use astrology as a tool to do that, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so that you can check out the rest of my videos. And most importantly, that we stay connected through all the resources in my description box below. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.